Hi everyone, this is our first video in our series on introducing fractions. And before we can really get into working with fractions, the first skill that we're going to learn how to do or practice is converting between a decimal and a fraction. Being able to write almost any decimal number as a fraction, the skills in this video. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to look back at our old place value chart. So the place values that we're going to be interested in this video is the tenths position, which would just be the place value directly to the left, to the right of the decimal point, the hundredths, 2 decimals to the right of the decimal point, and the thousandths, 3 place values to the right of the decimal point. And it's going to be really important that we're going to use and remember these place values for the skills that we're going to be doing in today's video. So before we can start converting our decimal numbers to fractions, we're actually going to have to change how we typically write or read our decimal numbers. So for example, if I put this down here, a lot of people watching this will say, oh, that's 0.7. And you may be correct, and that is how a lot of people do describe numbers, but especially for this purpose of this video and how we're going to be writing our fractions, we want to actually refer to this in a different way. And it's going to go back to our place value, which is why I have the chart right there. Instead of calling this 0.7, what we're going to call it is 7 tenths, because there are 7 digits in the tenths place value. Okay? Similarly, if we looked at this number right here, instead of calling this 0.17 or 0.17, we'll call this 17 hundredths, because there's 17 in hundredths that make up this number, if we broke it down into its smaller components. And similarly with this number here, instead of calling it 0.231, what we're going to call it is 231 thousandths. So this is going to be our way of describing these numbers, and it's actually a good practice to use this because it really makes understanding decimals and how they relate to fractions a lot easier in the long run. So now that we know how to name these numbers, we now have to think about how to convert them to fractions. And it's really quite simple. We call this one 7 tenths. So if we try to think about converting it to a fraction, we're going to have 7 out of 10. So 7 tenths would be written just like so, because we have 7 tenths. 17 hundredths, again, very similar. We're going to have 17 on our numerator, which is the top, and on their denominator is going to be our hundredths, 100. So 17 hundredths would be written as this. 17 hundredths. And I'm sure you can figure this last one out on your own, but 231 thousandths. Again, we're going to put the 231 in our numerator position, and in our denominator we're going to have our thousandths. So it's going to be 231 thousandths, and that's how you're going to be writing these decimals as fractions. So thanks for tuning in, and check out my next videos on fractions. We're going to be taking a little bit of a deeper look at how to write fractions and how to manipulate them, and eventually how they relate to percents.